Hi, everybody. So, the other reading that you guys had to do last week and that we were going to discuss today, and that we'll have a forum about, um, is the Lee Tonouchi piece called The State of Pidgin Address, which is kind of like the other side of code switching, right? So when we were reading Homemade Education, we were talking about how Malcolm X had his um, home English and he wanted to expand his home English because he wanted to reach a larger group of people than the people who speak his home English, right? So, but another facet of code switching is called language hierarchy, right? So think about this, okay? And this goes along with the shifting styles badge too. Okay, think about this. So, how many of you have been discriminated against because of the way that you talk, right? You're from Massachusetts or Boston, right? And people hear the way you talk and they assume that you're a quote unquote masshole, right? You're from New York or New Jersey and people think that you're mean because you're a Northeasterner, right? Or the flip side, and we talked about this in the Shifting Styles badge too, is that, if you ever came from the South, or if you come from the South, that and you've gone up north, if you've ever gone up north, that people assumed that you were stupid because of your accent, right? So we have this idea that if we hear someone speak a certain way, then they must be a certain way, right? And that is called language hierarchy. And it's part of this whole idea of, switching codes when you're in a different situation, to use the more appropriate language or the more appropriate English. But it also, right, has this kind of negative side where we then start thinking that if a person talks a certain way, they can't write a certain way and they can't learn a certain way and they must have these characteristics about them, right? And it's not necessarily the truth, okay? So, I mean, and if it's happened to you, right? And you're a smart person, you're a kind person, that, you are now becoming an educated person, right? And that any ideas that people have about the way that you speak, you know, um, negative ideas are not true. And yet still this language hierarchy exists, right? So what Lee Tonouchi is doing is, he comes from Hawaii, and the dialect or the type of English that they speak in Hawaii, right, the native Hawaiians, is called Pidgin. And it's kind of a conglomeration of all of the languages that kind of are coexisting in Hawaii, right? So, but there's language hierarchy in Hawaii where people who speak Pidgin are considered as intelligent or as educated as people who don't speak, Hawaiian Pidgin. And what Tonouchi was trying to do is, he was a college professor at this point. I think he's a writer now. And he was trying to prove that just because you speak a home English doesn't mean that you're stupid, and also doesn't mean that you can't switch codes, right? And write a beautiful, eloquent paper, or, right, still present your ideas in your home language and have that be a valid expression, right? So again, like we were talking about in home aid education, the idea is not to give up your home English. It's to add to your repertoire, add to your toolbox of ways to communicate. Okay, so I'm going to have you listen to Tony Uchi's poem, right? And you have access to this video too, but I'm going to play it here so that you can hear it, and then I'm going to show it to you on the screen, and we're going to talk about it.
Pidgin. Yeah, so after I got everybody's list, we compiled them together, and we made this group poem. It's called, They Say If You Talk Pidgin, You Know Can. They say if you talk Pidgin, you know can. Be smart, be important, be successful, be professional, be taken seriously. Be one teacher, be one doctor, be one lawyer, be a government worker, be a big businessman, be the Pope, be the president, be the wife of the president. They say if you talk Pidgin, you know can. Communicate, eat at fine dining restaurants, enter a beauty pageant, and win. Flirt, function, go out tonight, go to job interviews, go mainland school, go opera or someplace elegant, go forward. They say if you talk Pidgin, you know can. Get good grades, get on good education, get good job, get a smart guy, get a sophisticated guy, get chicks. They say if you talk Pidgin, you know can. Give public speeches, join the military, look high class, make it in Hollywood, pray to God, read, run for governor. They say if you talk Pidgin, you know can. Score, sound intellectual, survive, talk straight, talk proper, talk to the phone operator, talk to the judge, talk at funerals, talk to the haolis, talk to tourists, talk in European countries, talk in the classroom, take tests, teach and understand. They say if you talk Pidgin, you know can. Work customer service, work at Neiman Marcus, write a proper sentence, write letters, write formal essays, write papers to pass this class. They say if you talk Pidgin, you know can. If you want to read the whole poem again, it's inside my book at Living Pidgin, Contemplations on Pidgin. I gotta make commercial, bro, for the book, because look.
Okay, so I think I had the wrong number here. It's, I think, like 357, not 334. Okay, but you get the gist. So you heard him speak, right? I want you to see what this looks like on the page here, right? So this is a longer article, but there's a version of that poem here, right? And some of it's the same. There are parts that are different, right? But also, I wanted you to take a look at the paragraph before this and after it. So, and I encouraged you to read it out loud to yourself because it's spelled phonetically, meaning it's spelled exactly the way that it's said, right? Unlike sight words in American and whatnot, and English, it's there are lots of words that are spelled unlike the way that they sound. These are all spelled the way that they sound, right? So it's how many years I've been out of school, and still, yet nothing changed. Kids is still shame for talk Pidgin, even in front me, right? And so he's the teacher who is speaking Pidgin, and is advocating for Pidgin, and they're still embarrassed to talk about Pidgin in front of him or speak Pidgin in front of him. For make the assessments, I decided for do exercise with my students. I went go ask them for brainstorm for me one list. I told them, try me all the things that people told you over the years that you cannot do with Pidgin, and this what they came up with. And this is the poem, right, that you heard that he said, okay? And then I want you to read through this part too here. So it says, "Ho, from reading this poem, look like you pretty much useless for the nothing den if you talk pigeon. Destined to be the kind dead weight to society," right? So what he's saying here is that, you know, if you speak pigeon, according to society, if you speak pigeon, um, you're, you won't amount to much, right? So the weird thing is that pretty much every time when I read this poem at readings and stuff, the people in the audience laugh. Oh, that mean buggers, huh? So, they think it's funny that, this is how these kids feel. Do they find humor in the plight of the pigeon peoples? Could be, but I think so. People just find them funny because they know a lot of things on this list is not true, right? So, no, people aren't cruel. Um, they're laughing because it's ridiculous, right? That if you speak pigeon, you can do all these things, right? Bogus lit that. Why? Because I know pigeon people who eat at fancy restaurants, because I know pigeon people who's teachers, because they know pigeon people who pray to God in pigeon. I even heard a couple of guys tell that God talked back to them in pigeon, for reals. And then we all know of at least one pigeonish speaking individual who ran for governor. Right off the bat, I can think of both one loser and one winner, even. Brother Butt was the first guy for to come to mind. You think Brother Ben, like us, acknowledge him too, right? So I think that's um, those are the two candidates, right? So I guess that was relevant at that point, right? So, and this was written in 2005, so I don't know if it's relevant anymore. Whenever I read this poem to classes, we talk about how much this is perceive, how much is reality. How many of these things was actually part of the experience? How many of them actually tried, attempted talking to judges, tried working customer service, or tried writing formal papers in Pidgin? The list starts from for shrink, right? How they know no can. So what he's saying here is, you know, so if you think you can't do these things, right, have you tried to talk to a judge, to work in customer service? And the list shrinks when we talk about how many people have actually tried to do this stuff, right? So how do they know they can't do it when they've never tried to, right? A lot of times we get that self-censorship action going on, right? So this is important, self-censorship, that you automatically believe that you can't do something because of the language discrimination and hierarchy that you have experienced, right? And think about that. Think about all the times that you have censored yourself without thinking about it because you know that you would not be accepted if you spoke a certain way, right? We think the other guy is going to reject us, so we hold back and we no bust out the pigeon, but sometimes we don't know. Maybe we're going to be surprised. So he's saying that, we hold back because we think that we're going to be discriminated against, but you never know. You might be surprised that someone's not going to discriminate against you, right? So these two narratives here, these two ideas are sending different messages within the same world here, right? So Malcolm X is saying, expand your vocabulary and expand your toolbox of ways to communicate with other people, right? And Lee Toneuchi is saying there's nothing wrong with speaking Pidgin. There's nothing wrong with speaking your home language in every context, right? So just because you speak Pidgin doesn't mean that you are, that there's anything wrong with you, right? And I think both Malcolm X and Lee Toneucci would agree that just because someone speaks a home English or a home dialect, it doesn't make them stupid, right? But one is saying that you should expand your vocabulary and be able to code switch to another group of people that, and code switch in a way that would be receptive to them. And the other is saying, stick with your home English, you know, that there's no shame in speaking Pidgin, there's no shame in speaking your home English, right? And that you can do all these things and speak your home English too, right? So what's the answer, right? That's the big question. And that's what I want you to think about and what I'm going to be asking you, right? What is your opinion? What is your answer? Do you think that we should expand and speak in academic English in college, but still hang on to our home English? Do you think that we should just speak our home English everywhere, right? And that everyone should just accept how you sound, and that's just it, right? So think about what where you lie on that spectrum, okay? And we're going to have a forum, and that forum is going to talk about that subject. So there'll be one more video on the NPR article, and remember that I can see whether you have accessed the video. So your participation and your attendance, it's dependent upon you doing the work and watching the videos. Okay? So until the next video, I will talk to you guys later.